Okay, 1, 2, 3 guys masked and hooded. And we're coming in. This looks like a liquor store or something. Those guys are coming in for cash, clearly. And now these guys are fighting back. Okay, we've seen this a lot. Guys walk in the store with a gun, raised, finger on the trigger, ready to go, and that gun is pointed to him. And these guys are intent. Okay, go ahead and pause. If I'm in a store and I see 3 dudes masked up coming in there, I'm like, okay, this is pretty serious. And this is the same exact thing that I just talked about with this last scenario, is having a firearm ready to go. If that's the case and I have the right to do that, this would have been a perfect scenario to do it. Guy comes in with a gun. This is a threat to my life. I'm gonna fade away. I'm gonna draw my gun and then try to take shots if I need to get that guy out of my store and reduce that threat down to nothing. Because these guys look like they're walking in there to take your life. The way those guys are marching in there with 3 dudes strong, I don't know what they're coming for. They very just as easily could have been in there to just kill me. So I want to take that threat seriously. We see people fight back with a firearm that's out often. And, again, you never know the context with, is that gun loaded? Is it real? What's going on here? But I certainly want to take it as it is real and work through the scenario as best as I can. And then let's watch these guys fight back again. You see the guy go away from the counter. He very calmly just goes to grab the chair, fights for the firearm. I don't know where the firearm went. Go ahead and when you get to the spot where he goes to grab the chair, pause, because this is something I just noticed. This guy's kind of nonchalant about being like, okay, guys are coming to the store, they caught me off guard. The one thing I like that he does is you'll see the guy in the hoodie. He kind of says, okay, I'm gonna look away. He looks right at the stool, thinking to himself that's probably what he's gonna grab to hit this guy. But what he realizes is that he's got a gun in his face. So to grab the stool at that moment would be kind of foolish. So he goes to grab the stool, and I don't think the guy with the gun really knew what he was doing, but his attention was off him, and that's when he turns, and all of those principles that we talk about all the time, clear, control, and crush, come into play. His buddy jumps in, and he's looking away, and then turns, tucks his head. He clears initially, but that tussle right there, like I tell you all the time, there's a lot of bad things that could happen. If that guy's finger was on the trigger, somebody's potentially getting shot if that guy came in there to do harm. And they were able to mitigate that, thank God. And were able to get that gun offline and then fight these guys out the door. So the biggest thing in all these guys is that critical moment when you go to take the firearm away and it's pointing all over the place. There's just so many variables there. We have to ask ourselves, is it worth it? Were those guys coming in to just get cash? Could you have waited, practiced a little bit more patience with what was going on there, backed up and be like, hey, what do you want? Because his hands were still in arm's length distance. That guy came right up to him behind the counter. But he did use his body and that ability to divert his attention to get both hands back on the gun. What other principle did we see? 2-on-1. If you go back, you can clearly see both hands are grabbing that one limb, trying to get that gun offline. Boom. And then he just gets in that awkward zone where he's good at first, but then he retracts the gun, right? He lets the guy retract and he doesn't really stay on him. Well, if I get 2-on-1 and that guy retracts, where am I going? I am going with that gun. I am staying on that limb with my entire body until I get the result that I want. And he even had his buddy in the background able to defend and help him out. Ultimately, I think that this ended up working out and these guys left, but there's just that scuffle there where, if possible, I'd like to really zoom in on what happened, because that's the learning point in this video for me, is that what happened in that scuffle where the gun was controlled, then it wasn't, and then it pulled back, and then these guys are smacking him with the stool. Offline, tussling, and then he's got the stool. So he went to get the stool. He broke contact, fought and tussled for the gun a little bit, and they didn't want to fight. They lost their will to fight and broke contact. But that firearm being out, that was that critical moment where we have to train. Clear, control, crush, seek reputable training, do counter weapons. If you think you're going to be the asset that steps up in this situation, make sure you know what you're doing and get the reps in early.